we needed somebody, a vessel, that allowed us to make the structural change, which is hard. I think it can be very bursty, but necessary. And I've said this before. I think the best way to think about our current political climate in the United States is we are led by a transcendent political athlete.
Transcendent how?
Donald Trump, is the most effective and capable political athlete we have ever seen. Why? He understands how to connect at the one-on-one level. He understands retail politics better than, frankly, anybody. And you can just see this if you go to a rally, the way that he can connect with individual people. He has an affability that's very disarming. And yet, because of his business acumen, he has a way of negotiating that I think is just very hard for the learned non-business person to compete with. You know, there's that very famous Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Mhm.
I think the president has an incredible ability to negotiate. Howard Lutnick has an incredible ability to negotiate. Scott Bessent has an ability to negotiate because of their grounding in business. And when you apply it to the realm of politics, I think it has some very consequential outcomes. And in this specific case, what they are doing is they are allowing us to question these two sets of beliefs. What should the organizational model of the world be? Is it a bunch of
Of the world or America?
Well, it's of the world because the consequences of America are for the world.
Hmm.
Is it a bunch of
What if the world doesn't believe that America has that right to decide?
I think America only has the right to decide for itself.
Yeah.
And I think that that is what it does. But the ripple effects of that are very clear. And I think that that's a very important decision that other countries can make. Like AI is actually a perfect and emblematic example of this decision. And I think in the microcosm of AI, you can see this kind of duality. There's open source, mostly Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
some American alternatives, NVIDIA being the
Mhm.
biggest one. And then there's closed source, which is like, these large
Mhm.
foundational models. If you believe that AI is the cornerstone of productivity and GDP, there's an argument to be made that every country has a sovereign responsibility to determine what they should do. There is no path dependency where the only path is America.
Don't
And I
you
think
think
that, and I think that that's true militarily. I think that that's true in every which way. So I think what America has done has said, here are the boundary conditions that we are going to now change in order to partner with us. Historic trade deficits are no more. The sovereignty of our supply chain is now a critical dependency. We will make sure American resilience is the number one focus of the administration. Those are huge changes, and it has broad ramifications. But we needed somebody who was willing to break the norms in order to say that. And I personally believe that America needed that wake-up call because we were all subsuming ourselves to a monocultural global elite that wasn't necessarily making decisions from first principles anymore. And I think it's important to have an opportunity to re-underwrite those decisions every few decades.
I hear you. I don't know how far I can debate this line of politics without getting into trouble, but sure, the deficit numbers are down. The debt is not going to go down. It's only going to increase with time. Sure, maybe you depreciate the currency to a point where it becomes more feasible, or you grow your way out of it, or you have an alternate currency of exchange which helps you pay for it. All of that could happen. But when I look From the outside, like I was telling you last night at Davos, I was seeing how the Europeans were reacting to what the Americans were saying. It feels like you are, in a way, creating a block. The world had many blocks. I wouldn't be it wouldn't be too far fetched today to extrapolate that there might be one block which is America and another block which is the rest of the world, which I don't think would be a good thing for America.
I don't think it's going to be like that.
Hmm.
And the reason is that at the end of the day, America is still the heartbeat of so many really important, innovative technologies, medicines, capabilities, culture. And I don't think any of that changes. Will there be other forms of it over time? Yeah. And I think that that's okay. Um, so I don't think that this is something where, what should have the Europeans done? I suspect if I was a European leader and I was sitting there in Davos, I would be really upset with some of the decisions that I have made. I would think to myself, was it smart of me to have turned off all my nuclear generation because a 16-year-old girl told me to? Probably not. Was it smart of me to have a single source supply of an overwhelming supply of energy from two pipelines that that
Mhm.
don't have redundancy? Probably not. Should I have maybe reconsidered how I think about migration and immigration? And how do I balance asylum versus relocation versus, productivity based immigration? And I think that if I was in Europe, I would be like, man, I think I made a couple of these decisions really wrong. But again, if you're being really intellectually honest, then why don't we go back and ask why were those decisions made?
No, I agree with you 100%. I don't think the
So I think it's
Europeans.
hard to litigate the fact that they may not be self aware enough to actually be honest.
I agree. They might not have been, but them not having been might have been beneficial to another state because they weren't. But now they seem to be coming together.
Again, I think the Europeans are brilliant people. They're
Hmm.
smart, they're thoughtful, they're capable. If from here in first principles, one cannot underwrite who to be long term partners with, I think that we should hold out some small amount of percentage that they could just be emotionally overreacting.
Yeah. You know what they were telling me?
and again, so that's them repeating the same mistakes over again.
Yeah. As soon as we walked out of the room after I can't remember which speech, I was talking to a bunch of the politicians from Europe, and they were like, America is 27 trillion GDP, 350 million people. Europe together is 500 million people, but 22, 23 trillion GDP. The distance is not very far. I have not heard Europeans speak like that as one country or one nation, but not individualistic for their own regions in
Look,
a long, long time.
Nikhil, let's just be really honest. Like, Europe is going to come to a crossroads.
Hmm.
Italy is doing incredibly well
Yeah. Because of taxation, you think?
because the economy works and they have a stable government. They have sensible laws on a bunch of things that have allowed them to retain a sense of national identity and maintain reasonable growth. What do we think happens when the Italians wake up one day and say, should I secure, all of that gold that I have that's in Brussels?
Hmm.
Maybe I should send some of that back and keep it in vaults in Rome.
Which is what is
Dollars to
happening.
dollars to donuts when that question really comes up and we start to think about, real assets, devaluation of currencies.
Hmm.
This is going to create some really, really interesting conversations.
That is happening in the US now. People are bringing gold back from the Federal Reserve into individualistic countries.